So I just want to open up and say, coaches, thank you so much for joining me today to talk about our Vikings Vote initiative. My first question and pretty much statement is, so each of you have voted early. So could you talk a bit about your voting experience?
Dennis, I think you should go first because I know you wore a tux. Like, I want to hear about this tux.
Well, my experience, I'm a advocate for civic engagement, across different communities, and obviously for young people to be excited about it. Sometimes we get disconnected from the evolution of the voting process in the United States, where everyone wasn't afforded the opportunity. Whether it's women getting the opportunity, and people of color, people of different ethnicities and from different countries. So I kind of partnered with a youth initiative, Prom at the Polls. And Prom at the Polls is something that is kind of initiated through the Center of Civic Engagement and the Center for Politics at UVA, guy by the name of Larry Sabato, who is probably one of the world-renowned political politics and higher ed professors out there. So I teamed up with them, and I just wanted to do something different. My players were looking at me like I was crazy. The people asked me if I got married, or am I about to go get married?
Wow.
So it was fun. It was good. And it was for a great cause. And if I had to do it again, I would try to, make sure my wife is there and pull a little more other people with me, and dress up and make it fun. So it was good.
I love it.
Thanks, Coach Hannah. Thanks, Coach Hannah, for throwing me under the bus.
No, I knew you would play the chivalry card and try to make me go first, but I just wanted
I was
to hear
about to.
I
was about to get you.
Dennis, you open the door for me, I'm going to open the door for you. It's a two-way street.
Oh, I appreciate it.
But for me, Mariah, I'm not the greatest at actually knowing history. I can't speak dates. That's just not how my brain works. I don't remember actual names and dates. But I do know that people fought for my right to vote as a woman, and for Dennis's right, to vote, and for your right. And I just think it's so important to be able to use our voice, right? And with being able to vote early, I think it just gives that opportunity and that ease of I can vote, right? Whether it's doing an absentee ballot, especially for some of our kids and our programs that really want to vote from their home state, that can't go home to vote. But also for people right now, especially in the middle of the pandemic, that are at risk and can't go to the actual voting places to vote because they're either afraid of getting sick or they can't go. And so for me, what I did was I brought my entire family's ballots in after morning practice one day, and I walked right down to the county board of elections and personally dropped them off. And that was pretty cool. Now, it wasn't swanky. I didn't have on a tux, and I didn't get my sticker, but that's okay. Not everything is about the Instagram. It's about real, right? Like being real and getting out and doing your vote, no matter what it takes, whether it's an absentee ballot, whether it's voting in person on the day of election, voting in person, early. And this morning we were coming back from swim practice off campus and had the 15-passenger van. And at, just after 8 a.m., the line was wrapped around, and the girls in my van were laughing because I know this would have embarrassed my assistants, but I rolled down that window at 8 o'clock a.m. and started screaming out the window. I said, "Good for you for voting." And I just was clapping at the red light and cheering, and you just saw everybody just kind of perk up, And I just seeing this line of people, just all walks of life, you know, and there were some people dressed up probably because they were going to go to their business and go to their place of work. And you could tell there were some different socioeconomic statuses there, just by what people were wearing, but watching everybody in line and kind of with their head down, you know, and it's like, hey, this is an amazing thing that you can do this. You can do this early, and you're doing it no matter what, even with that mask on, and you're waiting in that line, you're 6 feet apart, you're doing it, you're doing your part. And in my van, then we had that discussion of my women being like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I get to vote, and talking about how, you know, what are we going to vote for? Are we going to vote? Do you know what you're actually voting for? And then the discussion of, man, I'm a little bit afraid of, you know, the people I went to high school with and what they know or what they don't know. And if they're going to have, you know, an educated opinion and an educated voice, and just the discussions that we've been able to have. And I think in times of great adversity, it shows our true colors. And, you know, I'm really proud of how through this, we are all bleeding green, and how it's bringing out, I think, our best colors in this athletic department, to be able to have this conversation with you, Mariah, to be able to have these discussions with all of our student athletes about how meaningful it is to be able to have this right, how important it is to exercise that right, but also that to be educated, and to, this is the first time, especially for some of our youth, that they get to cast their ballot. And hey, maybe you're from Georgia, maybe you're from Tennessee, maybe you are from Idaho, and you only know what you know because of your parents or your childhood home, and being exposed to people from all over the country and the world. You know, our team has some international athletes that don't have the right to vote here, and frankly, actually probably know more about American government than some of our people that live in America. And those discussions of, well, what country are you from? And you know, having the discussion of, you know, somebody from Holland or England that has a parliamentary, right? That they have a king and a queen and a prime minister and completely different government. So just the discussions that this has brought up has been really cool too. And I got on a tangent because that's what I do. So I'm going to stop talking, because I don't know how I got talking about kings and queens.
No, we appreciate it. Well, my next question, you kind of touched on it a little bit. So a lot of us are first-time voters. So what should a student athletes expect when they go to the polls for the first time to cast their vote?
Well, I would first say this. I am extremely proud of you, Mariah White, for your leadership, for what you're doing. You stepping up to the plate and sort of taking a bull by its horns and not being afraid to step out, right? I think that's important, because as young people, you know, I was there, I wanted to fit in. This is not a position and a fight where everyone, it's important to everyone. It's not. So what you're doing, continue to build on it each year. I am proud of you, and what you're doing. The question was what exactly again?
What should student athletes expect when they go to the polls?
So going to the polls, I think you have to go in with the mindset of being patient. And whatever comes up that day, understand you're in a place where people are coming from all walks of life. All walks of life. The rich, the poor, you know, the experienced voters versus the first-time voters. Understand that it's intimidating sometimes, and it's okay to ask questions. It's all right. Ask questions, be respectful of others, no matter if you hear a side conversation, no matter if you see something you don't like, be patient. And you may get approached, you may experience some things that may come from our past, meaning, you know, I think voter suppression and voter, you know, those things happened at the ballot in the lines. So there's still a different form of it that can happen, whether it's a discrimination that you face, or, you know, maybe even thinking you don't have the correct paperwork or ID or the anxiety. It is a different process. And err on the side of patience, have grace, um, just understand what the focus is. You're going to have butterflies, especially first time voters. You're going to have game like butterflies. You're not going to know what's on the other side of that door, but you guys have been trained up and you have the right disposition to win the day. And the most rewarding part is going up to the ballot, getting your name and understanding that, yes, the registration did go through. And now you can receive your ballot and go to the actual poll and go behind the curtain. And before all that, you have to understand who you're voting for. It's just not a presidential election. It's a lot of local and state names on there that can be overwhelming. Don't be afraid to write things down on a notebook to know who's running, and then open that notebook while you're in your polling. And when you're behind the curtains, don't be afraid to go through your phone and go through notes. But I would say guessing is not the right way to do it. Don't just guess. If you don't know something or know someone, don't just guess. And that's a nonpartisan approach, but sometimes our voice can be seen and heard through the vote. And I don't want anyone to just go in there playing any, mini, miny, mo because they hadn't heard of a name.
Right.
You have to do your job, and that's registering, then educating yourself on who will be on that ballot. There's different websites that'll take you through each candidate of other I guess voting rights or parties or whatever it is, but it'll take you through the names and what they're about. I think that's important to go through collectively. And then after you go through that, make your notes, write it down, and then go vote. That whole game day experience, you have it. And moving forward is rewarding, and it's very rewarding. You'll have a sense of pride. Don't be afraid to share it, because it is something that is leaving our country, and we have to save our democracy. This is one of the longest standing democratic democracies or it's a democratic sort of system, so to speak. So save our democracy and participate in the vote. Your opinion is your opinion. This isn't a time to be opinionated. Respect who someone else believes in or what they believe in, and just make sure you exercise your vote and participate. And that's what I would say.
How do you follow up to that? Jeez.
Oh, Hannah, knock it off.
The only thing that I could possibly add to that, I think I know your generation a little bit, and the world that we live in, it's all tied to these, right? Cell phones. And that we don't live in a very real world right now. I mean, with the pandemic and quarantine and isolation, our reality is a little bit different right now. And I was an educator, and I was math and health education. And the biggest thing about health education is health changes, right? Like science changes, and we always have to learn more and more. So it's not necessarily about memorizing things, but knowing how to find valid and reliable sources. So again, I'm not that history buff that memorizes things, but knowing things inherently. And I think especially as I learn about social media influencers on Instagram and TikTok, I think there's a lot of influences out there right now politically, and I think it's very easy to get swayed by influencers. And I think that's one thing as you are lining up to vote, to really think about what is influencing your decision, right? Your opinion and what it is that you're going to go and click or check or color in that bubble. And think about, is this an informed decision? Is this something that I actually believe in? And where am I being influenced? Am I being influenced by my family? Am I being influenced by something that is loud, right? Think, you know, where are my influences? And I think that's something to really think about, again, whether it's an absentee ballot or voting in person, that it's very easy to get influenced, right? And even in that line, right, whether there's people are talking, or, you know, they're not supposed to pass out stuff at when you get in the line, but come on, we all know that there's going to be people still trying to campaign and sway you, right? It's the same thing as at the grocery store, why they put all the candy and the little doodads at the grocery line, because they know you're going to impulse buy at the very last second. Okay. And so I would really urge you and all of our youth that even at that very last second, that impulse to just kind of check it and filter it and be like, you know, and like Dennis said, have your notes, have your plan, so that way you don't get influenced and waste your voice. You know, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. So my final question or questions, so both kind of spoke on it already, but like, why did you vote, or why is it important for everyone, not just student athletes, to go out and exercise their right to vote?
You want me to go, Hannah? Okay. Well, I am a historian. I take pride in knowing history. 1776, you had to be a white male over the age of 21, right, to vote, who owned land. And you look at the history of this country, is very fascinating. But our country is the only country that really was built the way it was built. It is very interesting. And when you look around the world and see how their systems of government work, is different. You look at, I would say, 1920, when women had the right to vote. Think about the years between that and then women getting the right to vote. Those are a lot of years, right? And then you look at 64, 65, when Lyndon B. Johnson signed what he signed to give African Americans the right to vote. Now, we're still not talking about Indian Americans, Asian Americans, and different people of color. We're looking at those parts and those times. And it's very fascinating, the history. Think about poll taxes, literacy tests, fraud, intimidation that took place during that time. And this was the practices around politics. But there was also a time where I would say you had Reconstruction and you had a voice, but that was taken away. The different types of I guess, racism and injustices, it wasn't just directed toward Black people. It was also directed toward others and women. And it was a pretty bad system. We have evolved as a country, and evolving as a country leaves a bad taste in your mouth about the voting process, because now we feel that we don't have a voice and it doesn't apply to us. Well, your vote counts. And to make change, you have to vote from a local. Erase the presidential election. You have to understand voting for judges, voting for local, voting for police chiefs, and all this other, the different voting for your mayor. All those voting at the local level, then state level, leads to the national level. And you have to be engaged in that process. I think it was 1971, they lowered the age for 18-year-olds to vote. That added a different demographic to the voting process that may not be interested because of where they are in life. And college students aren't in the real world, and they may not be involved in the political system the way that the history says it's important for you to be involved. So that's why I say, Miss Mariah White, I am proud of you. I am proud of you and our SAC leaders for what you guys are doing, and continuing to fight for your right to vote, but also fighting for your culture to be involved in the process in a nonpartisan way. Just being involved is very important to keep our democracy the way it is. And, you know, I appreciate you for having me this morning. And Ms. Hannah, I'll pass the microphone to you.
Dennis, I could listen to you talk. I wish I could just be a fly on the wall and just follow you all day. Like, I just
hey,
feel I learn.
come hang out with me all day. You come hang out.
I would love that. Mariah, can you just repeat the question one more time? Because I'm still just so caught up in everything that Dennis said.
No, you're fine. So the question was, why did you vote, and why is it important for everyone and not just student athletes to exercise their right to vote?
You know, it is a right, and if I've got a right, I'm gonna exercise it, and I've got a voice, and I'm gonna use it. And I think, you know, with what Dennis said about the nonpartisan, or, you know, that we're not sitting here telling you what to vote for, but we're telling you to vote and to be educated. And for me, you know, I am a white woman working in a man's world, right? College athletics is a male dominated world. And for me, if I think back to the history of my family, you know, my grandmother was born in 1915. Both my grandmothers were born in 1915. And I look at the life that they led and the life that my mother led. My mom was born in 1947. And when she talks about growing up and having to kneel on the ground and have her skirt touch the ground, she couldn't wear pants to school. Mariah, my mom wanted to be a basketball player, and she's going to be a basketball player in her next life. I did not get her land skills. She's the coordinated one in the family. But when I listen to my mom's experiences growing up, you know, being born in 1947 and growing up through the 50s and the 60s, and her talking about the life that she had and the choices she didn't have, and looking at just the different generations of where I get to be right now, where I could grow up and be and do whatever the heck I wanted. I work in sports. Like, I work in sports and I can wear pants every single day. Every day. And I can wear shorts that if I kneel on the ground, they don't have to touch the ground, right? Your shorts don't have to touch the ground, right? And you don't even have to play basketball in a skirt, right? So if I look at how far the women in my family have come, where women couldn't hold political office and women couldn't, you know, become a doctor, couldn't do these things. And I was like, look at how far I've come. If I don't use my right, if I don't have this vote, I've thrown away the generations of women, you know, that have come before, where if somebody wanted to go to the polls as a woman, you know, 100 years ago, they get arrested. You know, we didn't have that right. And so I vote because I can. I have a voice because I can, and I want to make sure I use it, because if we don't go forwards, we go backwards. And I'm sorry, we've come a long way in 100 years. We've come a long way from the 60s. Behind, we're not far enough yet. And I think that's where we've got to continue moving forward, right? And that's why I vote. Why? Because I have a voice, I got head on my shoulders, and I got mouth, and I'm going to use it in my little bubble of the world here at Cleveland State. And I think the great thing about sports is, you know, the world does not happen in a vacuum. And I think that we are doing our right by making the world a better place by using our platform as a place for power and change, right? Working in athletics, being coaches, being athletes, you know, we get put up on this pedestal, and I'm so proud of Cleveland State for taking advantage and allowing us to speak up and to speak out and to talk about these things that matter, to talk about humanity, to talk about civic engagement, that we're not just going to shut up and dribble or splash around in a pool, right? That's why I vote, and that's why I'm on today, because I want to help our little bubble of the world here at Cleveland State continue to make our bigger bubble a better place. So that's what I got.
Well, thank you so much, Coach Cates and Coach Burandt. Thank you for joining me today and sharing your voting experience. For more, so we're going to close it out. And for more Vikings Vote information, visit us online at csuvikings.com and go vote and go vote.